Well, this is going to be a very long, hard and grueling race. It's going to last nearly 2 hours. And that, by the way, is Nicola Larini in 12th position, who has driven the 5th most racing miles in Grand Prix this year, showing he's got a very reliable car. You know that the track day temperature is 47 degrees, and I think it's going to get hotter as the heat soak of the tarmac starts to show up. So, 87 laps, 190.3 miles, it's going to be a tough one.
It certainly is. Temperature, the hotter race that we've had for a very long time. Brakes are always a problem on street circuits, particularly here at Adelaide, because it's quite fast and there's some very heavy braking from the couple of quick points on the circuit. And even the mighty McLaren team were in a certain amount of brake trouble yesterday. They had a bit of a problem with brake ducts cracking this morning, but hopefully they beefed those up. Now, the story of today is the continuing, well, I think really it's a Prost saga, and that Murray referred to earlier, and that is that at the driver's briefing this morning, Ron Dennis asked a perfectly reasonable question in that for a clarification on what happens at the first chicane, because there is an opportunity for people who want to be very agricultural to take a bit of a shortcut and straighten out the second apex at the first corner, at the first chicane. And he asked whether that was legal to do that, and the reply from Fiesa was rather a good one, in that well, if you do that much, you're going to damage your car, aren't you? At which point, Prost just got up and walked out of the meeting, for which he received the yellow card from Fiesa, but no fine, which was surprised a lot of people, because other people get fined for that. And he then refused to be in the 500th Grand Prix, all 26 drivers in it photograph, and said, I don't want to be part of that group. And it was generally felt that if anybody else had said that, they'd say, well, fine, then you're not in the group that's going to be in the race. But he's in the race, and his behaviour certainly is of a man under a bit of mental collapse, courtesy of the beating that's been handed out to him by Ayrton Senna. And he's whinging and moaning and blaming everybody else but himself for him not winning the World Championship. And we've seen in the last 4 races or so that the only person who stopped Alain Prost being in a position to win the World Championship is Alain Prost. Now, coming round to the start line, watching from Prost's Ferrari onto the second row of the grid, and there'll be a little bit of a wait now while all the cars behind him come onto their positions, and then the green flag from the back when everybody is stopped and in their place.
So watch the top of your pictures and the back of the grid, and then of course watch the front, because this first corner is going to be just as critical in Australia as it was in Japan and everywhere else. On the right, in pole position, is Ayrton Senna. On the left, second on the grid, is Gerhard Berger. Behind Senna is Mansell, behind Berger is Prost, and behind Mansell is Alesi, behind Prost is Patrese. Watch the lights. The green flag waves at the back. Australia is go, and Prost leads up from behind, tucks in behind Mansell, who comes up alongside Gerhard Berger. Senna leads, Berger second, Mansell third, Prost fourth, Piquet fifth, Patrese sixth, Boutsen seventh. Moreno is in 8th position, Derek Warwick is 9th, and already there is a gap developing between Ayrton Senna sprinting away from his teammate Gerhard Berger, Mansell, Prost, Piquet.
Yes, and Piquet charging well. He got inside Jean Alesi into turn 2. And that's good news to see Nelson Piquet out there looking as if he really means business. So the front 2 rows have got away pretty much in formation. Prost was a bit unfortunate there at the start. He made a particularly good one. Berger was slow away, and as Prost darted out behind him, then there was nowhere to go. Now look, Prost first to move, but nowhere to go. Mansell moved well, but Berger really screwed him up, and Prost probably made the best start of all, but the narrow track precluded him. The rest all fought their way through.
And Ayrton Senna leads as he means to stay in the front the whole race. It's going to be a very long, hard race. You can see that he's already got quite a comfortable tarmac cushion between himself and Gerhard Berger. And Senna's plan, as ever, as they come through to complete the first lap, will be to build a time and distance cushion between himself and the rest of the field so that he can control the race from the front. Already, after one lap, Senna leads by 1.7 seconds, and that's a big margin. But you can see that Nigel Mansell is starting to close in third position. There he is on Gerhard Berger, and he's going for it. Mansell going for second.
Berger got a problem there. I think it may have been a missed gear. Let's see. Yes, he now seems to be back with proper power, but it may be that Berger's got a problem. Mansell into second place, and he's got work to do now because Senna's got quite a nice handy lead. Now, Prost will be very anxious that Berger has the same problem again. It's a lot easier to pass him that way.
And Berger's holding him up. Prost is tucked up underneath his rear wing. Mansell is the challenge for Senna, and we are on the second lap. Senna leads. Mansell is getting closer as he did to Berger, who is down the field. Now, look, here it is. There is Berger, third. Prost, fourth. Piquet right behind the Ferrari in fifth position. And we're riding with Nigel Mansell now. And that is Ayrton Senna in the Ferrari, the world champion of 1990 in front of Nigel Mansell.
Prost and Berger here. You see Mansell ahead. Tremendous picture, this. Really good view of the back of Berger's car as Alan Prost sees it. And you watch as they go out of the corner with McLaren gets on the power first, then he streaks away. Tremendous acceleration of these cars, and of course closing up again under braking. And you can see just how bumpy it is in these cars. It's not a particularly bumpy surface if we drove our road cars around it, but these cars are very hard and stiff, and they're going an awful lot quicker, and they really shake you around. So Piquet pressing two behind Alain Prost, and already a bit of a battle developing for third place as Senna and Mansell have a chance out front to settle down into some sort of a rhythm as they're a little bit on their own at the moment.
Lap 3, race order. Senna leads, Mansell second, Berger third, Prost is fourth, and there is Prost with Nelson Piquet right behind him. And Nelson Piquet's car was fastest down the straight this morning. In sixth position is Patrese, Alesi is down in seventh, Boutsen is eighth, Moreno is ninth, and there you saw the Ferrari running wide, but it's Berger still there, and Piquet is ahead of Alain Prost. So the Brazilian has passed the French world champion, and can he do anything about Gerhard Berger? Senna still leads, Mansell second.
And I'm really pleased to see what looks like a really business-like drive from Nelson Piquet. And I have to say, could this be anything to do with Roberto Moreno coming into the team? Very talented young Brazilian, and he's pushed him in qualifying. He pushed him and then supported him extremely well at Suzuka 2 weeks ago. And maybe this is the little stimulus that Piquet needs to show us what real talent he has got.
We are on lap 4 of this 81 race, one-lap race, and Ayrton Senna leads Nigel Mansell by 2.07 seconds. Mansell actually the fastest man on the course on the previous lap, just 0.3 of a second faster than Senna. There's Berger third. See the gap that's developing between Mansell and Berger. Piquet is in fourth position. He's got a gap between himself and Alain Prost, who is in fifth position. Then it's Riccardo Patrese. Now this is racetrack hairpin at the end of the Brabham Straight, and Piquet is really starting to challenge Gerhard Berger in third position. And that's Derek Warwick going well, followed by Ivan Capelli, who is 11th. Pierluigi Martini is 12th, and Johnny Herbert goes through and passes the Brabham of Stefano Modena. Here comes Senna, completing the lap.
And Mansell looks definitely closer to me. And certainly is new fastest lap of the race for Nigel Mansell. He's only chipping away at the lead, but it's now under 2 seconds, 1.8 seconds. Nigel Mansell trails Senna and is definitely catching him slowly, gently. And we could expect this. The good news potentially for the race was that the top 4 or 5 cars in the warm-up this morning, the Ferraris and McLarens, were very, very close in their times, in their race setup. and we don't expect it to be easy for anybody to get away. Prost is being pushed down a little. Piquet is really charging.
Lap record is held by Gerhard Berger, 1987 in the Turbo Ferrari, 1 minute 20.4. Fastest lap so far, Nigel Mansell, 1 minute 22.02. But of course, they've still got virtually full petrol tanks, and Berger is being harried every inch of the way by the Japanese Grand Prix winner, Nelson Piquet, in the multicoloured Benetton. You can see now, as they go round the left-hander there, the gap behind Piquet to Alain Prost in 5th position. And Prost is definitely, it seems to me, an unhappy man. Now we are on lap 6, and Senna has marginally pulled away from Nigel Mansell. The gap is back to 2 seconds again, but I am very interested in this Benetton situation. The Benetton team, with the support of Ford with their V8 engine, have honed the package all through the season. They got their award in Japan when the top 4 men fell out, and Nelson Piquet finished first, and Moreno, his teammate, finished in 2nd place. Nelson Piquet has really got his old fire back again. The world champion of 1981, 1983 and 1987.
Yes, it's good to see, but one has to say it's not before time, and one must point out that Japan was very much an inherited win. They were blown off for pace by the top runners. First, we lost Prost and Senna at the first corner, but Mansell took up the cudgels and was disappearing into the distance, leading by a long way. And they inherited the win, but if that's what it's needed to get them geared up, because the car has been very good all season. And that was Roberto Moreno going through, Derek Warwick chasing. And I think Moreno, after all, he's a Brazilian, he's young, and he's a real threat to Piquet, and maybe this has helped get Piquet's act into gear. Senna keeping it smooth, and Senna, new fastest lap for him, 21.5. The times are beginning to come down, and Mansell, the gap now just over 2 seconds, so they're pretty constant at the moment. It's just going up and down to either side of a couple of seconds, and I'm sure at this stage of the race Mansell will be quite satisfied with that situation. He doesn't really need to challenge Senna yet. This is going to be a race of attrition. He's got brakes to look after, he's got the whole car really with these high curves to look after, and if he wants to do some real charging, there's plenty of time later to make his attacks. So now, fastest part of the circuit, going up to 7th, just got into 7th gear, and reaching nearly 200 miles an hour, about over 190 on the straight, and now on the brakes.
You see Ayrton Senna turn in to racetrack hairpin. Now he will bear left round the 160 kilometres an hour padded turn. We're with Mansell. That is Senna ahead. The gap is about 2 seconds. It's up to 190 k's here, 240, then down through the gears, hard for the right-hander and Foster's hairpin. And they complete the lap. Ayrton Senna goes through. We are now on lap 8 in this 81 lap race, 1/10 distance and time already. Mansell 2nd, Berger 3rd, Piquet 4th, right behind the Austrian in his McLaren. Prost is 5th, Patrese is 6th, Alesi is 7th, Boutsen is 8th, Moreno is 9th, Warwick is 10th, Capelli is 11th, and Martini is 12th. And Alain Prost seemingly can do nothing about the battle ahead of him between Nelson Piquet and Gerhard Berger, and you're watching Senna.
Gerhard won this race in 87, Prost again in 88, and then Boutsen in the rain in 89. Just looking through the results, let's not forget Philip Streff, who is now sadly paralysed after a testing accident. He was 3rd here in 1985 and 5th in 86, so a sad loss to Grand Prix racing, Philip Streff.
Yes, and Andrew, really, Philip Streff never had a truly competitive car when he got those results, and this illustrates the importance of Adelaide. It is a finisher's race. It's important in any race, of course, to finish, but here it's a question of, I think, tortoise and hare. If you haven't got a competitive car, I think don't try to race, just drive and drive cleanly, and it's almost guaranteed you'll finish.
Nelson Piquet is lapping every bit as quick as Gerhard Berger as they exit Foster's hairpin. go down the straight into the S's on 150 Ks here, left, right, now sweep left at 180, up to the first right-hander at Wakefield turn. Senna, Mansell, Berger, Piquet.
Yes, I think that Piquet is going to have a lot of difficulty getting past Berger unless he can force a mistake, because although the Benetton was quickest at top speed this morning on the straight, you can see just looking at the cars why that is, because visibly the McLaren is running a great deal more wing than the Benetton. If you look at the amount of flat or air brake effect on the rear wing of the Benetton. So Piquet struggling. And Piquet does it. He had to muscle his way past. He wasn't as quick on the straight as Gerhard Berger, but tremendous performance under braking, and Piquet really having a good race.
Yes, indeed, on lap 9, Nelson Piquet moves up into fourth position, up into third position of Gerhard Berger. Ayrton Senna leads, Nigel Mansell is second, only 1.8 seconds behind him. Nelson Piquet is now in third position, and there is the replay you see on the right-hander there at the end of the long straight. I can tell you that McLaren had brake trouble in the warm-up period this morning, whereas the Benetton people are absolutely delighted with their car's braking ability. So Nelson Piquet charging hard, and he's lapping 121.6, which is faster than Senna, faster than Mansell, and of course faster than Gerhard Berger and Alain Prost behind him. So Nelson Piquet is the fastest man on the circuit now. And he is not only the fastest man on the circuit, he is the oldest man on the circuit. The enormous amount of experience. Nelson Piquet, 21 Grand Prix victories behind him. It's his 187th Grand Prix, and there he goes. Third, Berger fourth, Prost fifth. Patrese in sixth position. Coming towards us now is Jean Alesi, who is seventh, followed by Thierry Boutsen, who is eighth. And look at this, there is Ayrton Senna and Mansell right behind him, and he's a lot closer. The gap is down to only just over half a second as they go into lap 11. Mansell is charging.
Yes, and that was a very slow lap, fun enough, from Ayrton Senna. He came back to Mansell. He was a second slower than he has been lapping, and I have to confess I didn't see where the mistake came, but Mansell now very much on Senna's tail. And now Mansell now has to make a decision. Does he want to try and attack now, or is he going to content himself with playing a bit of a waiting game? I personally, in his position, would be satisfied to just follow for the time being. There is no hurry unless Piquet starts to close on them. If Piquet starts to close, then Mansell has to act. But if Piquet is not closing that gap, he can just stalk Senna and let Senna do the work.
Well, this is Nigel's last race for Ferrari. He is making the most of it so far. Lap 11 in this 81-lap race. Ayrton Senna has 6 Grand Prix victories behind him in 1990. Nigel Mansell has just the one in Portugal. And if you remember, he sprinted away from the start, blocked his teammate Alain Prost accidentally, but went on to win. That was his sole victory. And Nigel Mansell this year in the Ferrari has retired no less than 9 times. Look at the heat haze. I have never seen Nigel Mansell more cheerful, more ebullient, more outgoing than he has been in Australia, and it's certainly showing on the racetrack.
Yes, and the gap back from Mansell to Piquet is fairly constant, but the lap times now, as expected, are starting to go up rather than down as the heat really gets to the tyres, and all the leading group are now back lapping over 1 minute 22. They were down to fairly low 21s just briefly, and the tyres now will probably stabilise at this sort of level of grip. Tremendous view from Mansell's car. You see how the McLaren just pulls away from the far end in the straight. Mansell going out for clean air to have a look at the braking point. In closes, right up onto braking. Now watch the McLaren power away. And then the closing up comes under braking. Quite slowish left-hander, then a couple of quick flicks. The left, quick right, and hard onto the brakes. Now, see the flame popping from the Ferrari exhaust there as Mansell gets onto the brakes. And Senna powering away. Now I'm watching the lap times pretty closely. Because certainly, yes, and really the tyres now seem to have levelled off in performance. And Piquet is lapping marginally quicker than leaders. He has reduced that gap. He's now some 3.6 seconds behind Mansell. He's just edging closer slowly towards the leading pair. And behind him, Berger is dropping back, and Prost is starting to stalk Berger.
And the race order on lap 13 is Ayrton Senna 1 second ahead of Nigel Mansell, second. Piquet is third. Berger, there he is fourth. Prost behind him is in fifth position. Riccardo Patrese 2 seconds behind Prost in sixth place. Jean Alesi is seventh. Boutsen is in eighth position. Ninth is Moreno. 10th is Warwick. 11th Capelli. And in 12th place, Nicola Larini. Here they come, streaming down the Jack Brabham straight towards us. Third position, Piquet. Fourth, Berger in the McLaren. Gerhard Berger's race isn't turning out any better for him than Prost's race is for the world champion so far. Because Prost is the world champion, don't forget, until after this race has been concluded. And look at the gap now between Nelson Piquet leading and Nelson Piquet in third position and Berger behind him. And still Senna leads Mansell by one second. They are almost identical in lap times, 1:21.83, 1:21.81, and Nelson Piquet's just gone round in 1:21.6. Piquet is lapping faster than the two men ahead of him. He's catching slowly.
Yes, he's inching towards them, and Berger is staying very well with Piquet, in fact, but behind them, Prost at last seems to be starting to wake up. He's just put up his fastest lap of the race so far, and he's now holding Berger. He's not actually mounting any apparent attack at the moment, but he is stalking him pretty closely and appears at last, as I say, to be getting his act together. But he's got a lot of work to do to get anywhere near Senna. He's got 4 cars between himself and Ayrton Senna.
Thus far, only one retirement. Last year, only 8 finished. And last year, of course, it was flood conditions almost. It was so wet. But 8 is about par for the course for the end of the Australian Grand Prix. So tough and demanding is this circuit. And that is compounded today by the heat. Nigel Mansell is back again under a second behind Ayrton Senna. He's just made the fastest lap of the race, 1:21.553. And that's just a second outside Berger's 87 lap record.
Yes, and Berger superseded that. He is a new fastest lap from Berger, only about 2 seconds after Mansell crossed the line while you were reading that off, Murray. And Berger just tipped it by another couple of thousandths. And so the race is speeding up. These tyres seem to have settled with the fuel load coming down, race speeding up a little bit. And I'm glad to say what this means is that the feared serious tyre problems in this race looks as if they're not going to happen. Everybody seems to be settled all right, and Mansell really close to Senna again. Now, Mansell will be aware that Piquet is staying with them, as a result of which I would think Mansell may now be contemplating getting stuck in to try to pass Senna.
I wonder, James, if the fact that we know McLaren have had some brake problems and Ferrari seem to be happy is starting to show up already in the race on lap 15 out of 81.
I don't think so, Murray. Well, I'll look carefully for that, because basically on the brake problem that McLaren had, I think they needed a bit more ducting yesterday. Well, Senna's just now posted the fastest lap of the race so far himself, so he has responded and he's pulled a little bit away from Mansell. So the battle seems to be hotting up at the front. There's the caption. And on going back to the McLaren brake problem, I think they were running a little bit hot yesterday. Nothing serious. They upped overnight the ducting onto their front brakes. By making them bigger, of course, they got more air into it, and they weren't strong enough. They cracked brake ducts this morning. They beefed them up, and they were reasonably confident that all would be well before the race. And certainly, one has to say, and Terry Boutsen has superseded the fastest lap, and that's David Brabham. We're watching David Brabham in making his debut in an Australian Grand Prix, just being lapped by Ayrton Senna. And he had to fight hard to qualify. David Brabham did well to qualify, but it's going to be a hard learning day for him.
And now you're seeing what could be a problem for all the drivers, rather less of a problem for Ayrton Senna, but they're coming up to lap tail-enders. Senna has got Gabriele Tarquini in the AGS in front of him, and Tarquini has got in front of him Olivier Griard, who is a notorious blocker. There he is, Olivier Griard, Tarquini, and there's Nigel Mansell. Now, where is Senna? I saw a car flash past, but it's Senna still ahead. Senna's got ahead of the other two. Now Mansell has to.
I think Senna split them, yeah, he's split them. He hasn't managed Tarquini yet. But one thing Griard, I mean, he got Tarquini down, Senna is through, but the one thing that a driver really hates when he's coming up to lap back markers is the horrible sight of two back markers having their own personal battle, because they don't look in their mirrors when they're busy fighting with each other. Now, they certainly should, because they've been warned that the leaders, because Senna's already shown them that the leaders are around. But let's see, and of course the straight line speed of the Ferrari, Mansell hopes will carry him past Griard. Will it? He's going to have to be brave on the brakes, and he did it, yes. Well, Mansell, it was not really a contest, and he'll be happy that he was able to make it past them on the straight. That's, of course, the easiest place to do your passing.
Ding dong, you saw some real Grand Prix driving there. First of all, Senna, then Nigel Mansell. Boom, boom, past the two in front of them. And now we're coming up to the end of the lap. Senna is approaching the line, now over. And Nigel Mansell is now over. And the gap, which was 2.27, has gone up to 2.7 because Nigel Mansell had more trouble getting past Griard and Tarquini than Senna did. And that is not at all unusual. In fact, it is totally usual. Senna is an amazing man for getting through the field. And now, on lap 18, Senna leads Mansell by 2.7 seconds. Mansell is 2.4 seconds ahead of Piquet. Piquet leads Berger, who is fourth, by 1.2 seconds. Prost is fifth, 6/10 of a second behind Berger. Prost is catching Berger. Patrese is sixth, Alesi is seventh, Boutsen is eighth, Moreno is ninth, Warwick is 10th, Capelli is 11th, and Larini is 12th as you watch Nigel Mansell, V12 Ferrari.
And Mansell's looking good now on a clear lap. He seems to be catching some of the ground he lost to Senna, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new fastest lap at the end of this one from Nigel Mansell. And Terry Boutsen currently has done the fastest lap just a couple of laps ago. He's back in 8th place. The leaders, of course, lost the last couple of laps messing around with the slower traffic. And we get a tremendous view the way the onboard cameras have been improved over the years. And now it really does look quite like, through the camera eye, pretty much like it does from the car. The only thing, of course, is you're not being cement mixed at 200 miles an hour. You can just see how much it's being shaken. But believe you me, yes, and I was right. New fastest lap for Mansell. Yes, he was clearly really throwing it round that lap and closing on Senna. So, tremendous view from Mansell's car. It's a little bit elongated, of course, through the relatively wide-angle lens. Looking, if one herself was in the car, it lengthens rather than shortens.
Now we are 19 laps into the Australian Grand Prix, and Senna laps Morbidelli in the Minardi, the young Italian, youngest driver in the race, 22 years free, and Senna laps Morbidelli in the Minardi, the young Italian, youngest driver in the race, 22 years old. Now Mansell, and I think actually Mansell has benefited this time. We'll soon know, because they're coming up to the end end of the lap, and at the end of lap 18, the gap between Senna leading and Mansell second was 1.9 seconds, thanks to Nigel Mansell's fastest lap of the race, and my goodness, it looks less than that to me now. They're coming up to cross the line, they do so, and the gap between Senna and Mansell has come down to 1.5 seconds. 0.4 of a second may not sound very much, but at racing speeds, with cars and drivers whose performances are as close as these two, it is a lot. And Piquet is still third, Berger is still fourth, Prost is still fifth, Patrese is still sixth. Then it's Alesi and Boutsen, but this is the battle, Senna versus Mansell.
Yes, and what a battle we've had so far, and quite honestly, it looks to me as if this battle is going to continue, because Mansell looks to be the fastest man on the circuit, but only marginally from Senna, but I'm not fast enough by enough to make it anyway. And onto the curve with Initiate, and that was a bad mistake. He put it on the curve for no good reason, and look what happened.
And it happened to Nicola Larini, who was proudly saying yesterday that he had driven more racing miles in Grand Prix of 1990 than everybody else except 4 people. The 5th most, and here it is, look, watch him leap the curve, up in the air, crunch.
But he started it all as he lined up for the corner by putting his left-hand wheels on the curb at the entry to the corner, and that was where he lost control there. Very slippery, and that was an awfully bad mistake, because it's a guaranteed accident if you do that. So Mansell closer yet.
Not only that, but Senna's got another couple of tail-enders in front of him. Now, there is Senna, there is Mansell. The gap at the end of the lap was 1.2 seconds, and Mansell is faster still. The first lap in under 1 minute 21, 1 minute 20.777. Australia has waited a long time for this. The previous 15 Grand Prix. Now it has a Grand Prix in its own country, and what a cracker it's turning out to be. As up to Stag turn, turning right, down Jones Straight, go Senna and Mansell, with Mansell getting closer all the time into Brewery Bend.
There is David Brabham losing control of the car, I would think, on the curbs, and this really, the Larini spin and David Brabham, this is, these mistakes come from these drivers. They're not experienced and they're not that fit, and they are tired already. These cars really hurt, believe you me, the drivers already have used a great deal of energy, and that's where I'm sure the Larini error and probably that David Brabham came from, trying to relax a bit and then just getting a little bit offline, and boom, the car's got away from you. They get away from you so quickly, these cars.
Just see that.
Again, watching David Brabham spinning, coming into the chicane. This is a replay, of course, what took place a couple of minutes ago.
Not sure if David Brabham actually got going again as the two cars go past the back marker.
And this Mansell, the best chance he's had. He saw that little error from Senna that I suspect might have been caused by not driver, but just the very, very fine line that you're subjected to here in Adelaide between grip and no grip. Senna momentarily lost grip. Mansell picked up the momentum. Mansell now running just under half a second behind Ayrton Senna. And that was the corner that Senna ran wide. And look at this. Well, it's within 2 car lengths. Mansell is behind Senna. But here, coming down the straight, we've got Philippe Alliot now.
Mansell's got his opportunity now, and that is Philippe Alliot in front of Senna, who has got, and that's a coming together between Riccardo Patrese sliding out and masterly recovering, but Senna with Mansell right behind him. Now let's have a look. Yes, Alliot is still there in front of Ayrton Senna.
Just before that, at the Patrese shot, we had a glimpse at Prost really pressing Berger. So Mansell closer than ever, and was that contact, Murray, or did Patrese just lose it? I'm not sure whether he actually made contact, but he got away without losing a place, I think. So no harm done, and Mansell having a look. Nigel Mansell still having a look, but Senna holds the inside. Mansell a bit wide on the slippery stuff. We hope he doesn't lose time there, but he hasn't. He got traction where he was, although even though he was a bit offline. And Mansell is now really starting to look for a way past Ayrton Senna. His tactics are absolutely correct. They're in amongst the traffic, and this is the time to press, because he needs, look at, with that acceleration that you see there, But the way the McLaren goes away from him out of each corner, he stretches it until they get on the brakes, from which point he's too far behind. He needs the help of a back marker.
Well, in Italy, they call Nigel Mansell Il Leone, and you can see why, the lion. Lion-hearted, and he's going for it, but let us not forget that Ayrton Senna is too resisting enormous pressure, once again demonstrating his superb tactical skill, judging his moments to get past, hopefully in such a way that he can interpose the man he has just passed between himself and Nigel Mansell, and thereby make the Englishman's job more difficult. Coming up to the end of the lap, over the line goes Ayrton Senna. We're into lap 24, the gap which was 0.7 seconds comes down, well, goes up actually to 0.9, but really it's irrelevant, because Mansell is as near as makes no difference with Senna. His problem is going to be getting past.
Yes, and this raging battle for the lead has pulled them some 7 seconds clear of Nelson Piquet. That gap, that 9 you see on the caption, is the gap to Ayrton Senna, and they're edging away from Piquet, but I'm pretty confident that one thing Mansell should be not bargaining to get is a mistake from Ayrton Senna. He's just won the championship, and that does two things. It reduces the pressure, ups the confidence, and makes you really enjoy your driving. Senna has already said this weekend how much he's enjoying himself, and I think he's driving better than ever. He was quite sensational in qualifying with his dominance and his confidence, and of course he's a master of qualifying. I think that the Ferrari is working better in race trim, but Mansell is not going to get off at a mistake by Senna unless Senna can get a tangle and a confusion caused by a back marker, because Senna knows with the power of his engine, and as long as he keeps it straight through the corners and then powers it, there's nothing Mansell can do. Mansell will not be able to pass him, so he doesn't have to hurry. There's no pressure on Senna except when they get amongst the traffic. Then he's under pressure.
And to underline that, the gap has increased to 1.2 seconds between Senna and Mansell. But now Prost is charging hard. He's lapping in 1:22.5, but Berger was marginally quicker than him. And it's still Piquet 8 seconds behind Mansell, 3.8 seconds ahead of Berger, who is fourth. And Berger is 2 seconds ahead of Prost, or was, and that's one of the Dalaras retiring, and it looked like indeed it was Andrea de Cesaris. So now we have 3 retirements, and we're on lap 25 out of 81. They are Aguri Suzuki in the Lola Larousse, as you watch Senna and Mansell. David Brabham sadly has gone out of his own Grand Prix on lap 19, and there was the third retirement you just heard. Now, Senna, down to the end of now. They're catching another Ligier. It is that of Nicola Larini, the man that we saw go over the curb and land on all 4 wheels. He's got back on the circuit. And as Senna goes through the S's and then on his way up to the right-hander at Wakefield Turn, followed by Nigel Mansell, there he is. It's 1.1 seconds, so Mansell's charging again. 1 minute 20.7. He's faster than Senna at the moment. That's the fastest lap. 168.5 Ks, 104.7 miles an hour for Nigel Mansell, who, by doing that, moves up to Ayrton Senna, but not enough. He's got to be tucked right under the rear wing of the Brazilian's McLaren Honda before he's going to have a chance of pulling out. And even then, it would only be if Senna made a mistake, and you can see the gap yourself. You're with Mansell.
Yes, now there is a back marker in front of Senna, and that's really what Mansell's got to wait for, because the problem is you must conserve energy in these cars, and it's a tremendous, it ups the physical output. Driving in less than a second behind the car in front means your car slides more, which means you've got to put much more physical work into controlling it. Your line of vision is much impaired by the big rear wing of the car in front, so your concentration and your brain work is upped dramatically, and you cannot sustain this for the length of a race. So Mansell is going to have to try and gear his attacks for when he sees a gaggle of back markers and get in close then, but really he cannot do this for the whole race. He's got to be able to move backwards and forwards, and yes, another new fastest lap for Nigel Mansell, and he's got the gap down under a second, and this is where he needs to be, but I see no back markers in sight at the moment. They won't be far away, and it's a problem. What the bad news for Mansell is if Senna picks them off one at a time. There's one. They'll catch that within a lap. So Mansell again has to get himself into position just in case he causes that split-second confusion that can make Senna have to hesitate, and that's what Mansell has got to pray for, because that's going to be his best chance of passing. I don't think he can rely on a mistake from Senna.
Meantime, Satoru Nakajima has been into the pits with his Tyrrell Ford. Now Mansell will close up again. The gap is back to about half a second. 1 minute 20.611, the fastest lap by Nigel Mansell, and it's still Piquet third, Berger fourth, Prost fifth, Boutsen sixth, Moreno seventh, Warwick eighth, Patrese is in ninth place, Alesi is 10th, Capelli is 11th, Martini is 12th, and now here comes the Tyrrell, with Senna starting to close up on it. It's the Tyrrell driven by the man who made the fastest lap in Australia last year in the dreadful wet conditions, Nakajima. Now, Nakajima does not like street circuits. He likes big, fast, open, smooth circuits. And Adelaide, of course, is a lot slower, it's a lot twistier, it's a lot bumpier. Now, he will be seeing Senna coming up in his mirrors, and if he doesn't move over, this could be Nigel Mansell's chance.
Yes, but Mansell was closer to Senna a lap ago, and this is the time when Nigel needs to be tucked up under Senna's rear wing. And he's not close enough to pounce on any hesitation that Nakajima might cause. Nakajima's a fairly responsible, very experienced driver, and I think he'll see Senna coming. Well, he hasn't waved him through here. There's a little bit of a twist and a turn. It's a chance for Mansell to get close, because there's no real opportunity for him to get past now till the start-finish line. But somehow Mansell just isn't getting onto Senna's tail right now as he was a lap and a half, 2 laps ago. So his tactics for the moment have been back to front a little bit. But Senna may not get Nakajima into turn 1, and he's not. Well, this is playing into Mansell's hands. Mansell, come on. You're going to get past him. Oh, and Senna's having to work, and Nakajima's not being any help at all.
Now, is he going to do the same thing to Nigel Mansell, or is he going to let Il Leone through? 1.6 seconds was the gap at the end of lap 28. We're on lap 29 now. It's an 81-lap race. Let's see if the blue and white Tyrrell in any way gets in the path of the Ferrari. We're with Nigel Mansell in second position, and yes, of course, there's a race going on behind. Piquet is third, 10 seconds behind Mansell, who closes up to Nakajima to lap him. Berger is 2 seconds behind Piquet, who is third. And this is it now. Watch Mansell zap out. But I think Senna has been able to extend it. No, he hasn't. Look, down into racetrack hairpin. And this is the twisty part of the circuit. The gap was 1.6 seconds at the end of lap 28. We're coming up to the end of lap 29. It looks less than that to me. Nakajima has actually helped Nigel Mansell.
Yes, we had a very good view then of how a driver takes a tow. Mansell took us closer and closer under the wing of the Tyrrell, getting right into the hole in the air made by the Tyrrell, and that helps as the effect, if you like, of sucking the Ferrari along, and he gains momentum and then ducks out as late as possible into the wall of air. We also got a good view as they went round to racetrack hairpin, and a mistake by Gugelmin. He lost his left front brake, and that could well have been brake troubles, because we expect a lot of brake troubles. But Maurizio Gugelmin into the sandpit and probably won't be able to get it out of there, and it may well have been caused by some brake trouble. Now, and here we see it again. And you get those wheels running, and all they do is dig in. So, Senna and Mansell back to the battle. Now, it's here that we saw that Mansell's Ferrari, and if you listen to the engine note, goes a bit off the cam, and this is what Ferrari drivers have been complaining about all season. On the tight circuit, it doesn't have good torque and doesn't pick up well from low revs, and particularly when he passed Nakajima and had to get offline, the engine really coughed as he came out. And you watch the Honda engine in the McLaren when they were close together, you watch it from the Mansell Ferrari, from the onboard camera, you will see how smoothly the Honda brings in the power. And certainly on these tight turns, the second gear corners, the Ferrari engine really can't hold a candle to the McLaren, to the Honda. At top speed, the Ferrari engine is all right, but by then the McLaren has already marched away a bit under acceleration, and only when they're up on the full revs can the McLaren and the Ferrari start to hold on.
Yeah, the gap is now 2.5 seconds. Senna has gone round in 1 minute 20.6, which is the fastest lap of the race. We have a new 8th place man. Riccardo Patrese has got ahead of Derek Warwick, and the gap between Mansell, who is second, and Piquet, who is third, has extended too. Piquet is now 9 seconds behind Nigel Mansell.
You may have seen the tear come off Senna's helmet then. You saw his arm go across his face. He was pulling the cellophane strips that you have on the visor, across the visor, just to pick up the oil. When it gets too dirty, you simply tear it off, and you've got a clean visor again for a while. You can have several of them on, and they just go around the track. They get blown away by the cars. They're not a problem.
Gugelmin's problems was brakes. Now, that is not at all surprising. He just ran out of brakes, and I suspect some other people are going to do that because they take a tremendous hammering here at Adelaide. The Leighton House car went straight on into the gravel trap, another of the many safety features here and at other Grand Prix circuits, and Ayrton Senna is not getting at all rattled. We have a 7th retirement now. Briard, there are 19 cars running. Senna 19.78, as you can see the speeds. So Senna leads Mansell by 2.5 seconds. Piquet is 10 seconds behind in 3rd place. Then it's Berger 4th. Then it's Prost 5th, only 2 seconds behind Berger. But the Austrian in the McLaren is holding his place seemingly without any problems. Thierry Boutsen is in 6th place, and you can see for yourselves this battle for 1st position, with Senna holding it as he goes into racetrack hairpin.
Yes, and the two leaders now lapping a lot, nearly a second quicker than Piquet and Berger behind, and the gap reflecting that. Mansell now over 10 seconds clear of Nelson Piquet. Further down the field, Alesi, who was well up on the grid, but started the race by sort of going backwards through the field, but that may be something to do with the fact that he's running a different type of tyre. Has in fact sort of stopped the rot and has come back past Derek Warwick into 9th place now. Meanwhile, Mansell has now broken the lap record, and I think we're going to see a trading of lap records by Senna and Mansell.
Well, you can see, looking down from the helicopter, marvellous shot of the red and white McLaren. You can see too that the gap between it and Nigel Mansell's Ferrari is extending. V10 Honda engine leading, V12 Ferrari engine second, and thus far, thankfully, the 7-speed semi-automatic gearbox of Mansell's Ferrari does not seem to have given any trouble. Senna comes up to lap the Lotus in front of him. Mansell. Coming down to the end of the lap now, down to Foster's hairpin at 2nd gear and about 75 miles an hour, and it's Johnny Herbert that Senna is lapping now, and Mansell has to lap next.
And as we're getting towards half distance in this race, we have a quite amazingly low number of retirements, I'm very happy to say. Very few cars out of the race at the moment, and the other fear before the race was that we could, with the extra heat, run into a bit of tyre trouble for some of the teams, and the way the lap times are steadily coming down with the fuel load, that means that there is no tyre trouble for any of the leading runners at the moment, and that's a good thing because it means we're getting a pure race, and because we've got such a great battle here for the lead, Mansell's back a little bit with the traffic, but I don't think this is any more than a temporary situation. These two leaders really turning it on, and they're really going away from Nelson Piquet in third place quite more dramatically now as their battle rages than they were, say, 10 laps ago.
And we have a McLaren in the lead, a Ferrari second, a Benetton in third position, another McLaren in fourth place, another Ferrari fifth, and the Williams Renault in sixth position.
And seeing Johnny Herbert out there about to be swallowed up by Nigel Mansell, he is, of course, playing the understudy role to Martin Donnelly, and a very good one he's played. But tremendous news. I know that Martin Donnelly is now in a fit state to watch and enjoy this race in his hospital. I had a long chat with Sid Watkins this morning, who's the professor in charge of Martin's case, as Senna threads his way through the difficult traffic. And the news on Martin Donnelly is tremendously good. Martin has, his bodily functions are all coming back. He's now properly conscious, properly aware, and the prognosis for a full recovery is extremely good. So on behalf of everybody here in Adelaide, to you, Martin, get well soon. We miss you, and we really want to see you back in a racing car, and the Lotus team are doing pretty well in your absence.
Senna's got a battle on his hands. He's coming up to Stefano Modena and Ivan Capelli, having lapped Morbidelli, which Nigel Mansell has still got to do. Now, there's a real mixture of laps coming through. Here is Capelli, followed by Modena, with the race leader, Ayrton Senna, and Nigel Mansell has yet to pass Morbidelli. There's Morbidelli in front of us. That's the Minardi, and 22-year-old Gianni Morbidelli, ex-Formula 3000 driver. He's passed by Nigel Mansell, who's now got to catch and pass Stefano Modena, and the Italian Stefano Modena is way down the field in 18th position. On the left, Senna. In the light blue car is Capelli. And on the right is Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, with Stefano Modena in the blue and white Brabham with the Judd V8 engine in front. Now watch that, and here are the positions on lap 36 out of 81, and watch Mansell dart out from behind Modena's Brabham. Senna leading by 2 seconds, so Mansell is gaining. Mansell second, Piquet third, Berger fourth, Prost fifth, Boutsen sixth.
And that's interesting. You saw Stefano Modena signal Mansell by, and then the Brabham, no doubt, running a lot less wing. Mansell hadn't got the straight line speed to do it, and Modena had to help him by again. So that's Stefano Modena waiting really for a competitive car next year. When I say waiting, that's not to say that he wasn't giving it every possible effort to get a really good race here, but the Brabham went well early in the morning on Friday and Saturday here, but didn't like the heat, and Stefano's very disappointed, but he's really looking forward to a Tyrrell Honda next year. And Mansell goes past Capelli, who properly looks in his mirror, gives him a little wave. He knew he was there, and that's what a proper racing driver does when being lapped, and that was good, proper disciplined driving by Capelli. And it's a pity the more junior, some of the more, well, not necessarily junior, but slower drivers near the back, some of them pretty senior, can't behave properly like that. It's not difficult to do, and it's a matter of etiquette and manners. There's nothing more to it.
Meantime, as you watch Nigel Mansell second, having passed Capelli and Modena, Nelson Piquet is still there. The Benetton's reliability is to the fore again with its Ford V8 engine, and Piquet, as you can see, is some 12 seconds behind Ayrton Senna, the race leader, but he's only 8 seconds behind Nigel Mansell. He's 3 seconds ahead of Berger, Prost, and that is Alesi, Jean Alesi, the Frenchman. He's just lifted the nose of his car onto the curb, and Alesi, who by the way is on Pirelli tyres, was in 9th position, and now Senna's coming up to get past the Dallara. Then he is going to have to face Alesi, and we're getting a wonderful demonstration of Senna's traffic ability.
Yeah, Yes, and Jean Alesi, and yes, and Senna's traffic ability has taken him now nearly 3.5 seconds clear of Nigel Mansell. But if they get some clear track, I'm sure Mansell will be able to cut that gap down. But Jean Alesi's had a very unhappy race meeting with the Tyrrell. He's complained about brakes, because we've seen a lot of him in that situation that we just saw him, parked against walls and lightly brushing them and spinning off. He's had several in the practice and qualifying. He's blamed the brakes, and the Tyrrell team have blamed his brain. And there seems to be some disagreement about the cause of all these spins, but he was at it again just then. And here we are on board with Nigel Mansell, and that's how to make passing a back marker easy. Come onto the straight quicker, tuck under his rear wing, pull out, and let your momentum sweep you past. But there's more traffic ahead for Mansell.
Listen to the Ferrari.
Struggles to pick up from low down and is not as clean as the Honda through the slow corners, through that one and through racecourse hairpin at the end of the main straight. And Mansell will want to get past that Dallara, but that's his point, under braking, and he's made it through. See the flame on the overrun from the exhaust.
It really is looking now as though Ayrton Senna is on his way to match the 27 Grand Prix victories of the great Jackie Stewart, and Nigel Mansell is not at all pleased, and you'll never guess who it is he's not pleased with. It is Olivier Grilliard. I said earlier on that he was a blocker, and sadly he is proving it again in this race. There is the blue flag waving, but Mansell's taken an awful beating in terms of time, and just as Ayrton Senna has been matching or beating records all through this season and still had to match Jackie Stewart's great record of 27 wins and hadn't yet done so, it looks as though this is the race that it will happen, because Mansell has actually now lost touch effectively with the McLaren Honda of Ayrton Senna, and we are on lap 40 in this 81 lap race. Amazingly, we're still not quite at half distance.
And a new lap record for Moreno. Tremendous performance by Roberto Moreno, although he got a little bit pushed around in the early part of the race and went backwards a bit, but that certainly shows that he's got the ability and the speed to mix it with the best, but maybe as yet not. It's not so much a lack of experience, but a lack of confidence, a lack of experience in the mix that he's in Grand Prix racing. He's never been up the front until 2 weeks ago in Suzuka, and it takes a little bit of time to realise that you're there and you're as good as the others, and this is the confidence thing. And for Moreno, that will come.
Precisely so. I was talking to him just before the race began, and he said, I still don't know the car, Murray, and I've got a lot to learn about being with a really good Grand Prix team like Benetton. And there is the Benetton darting out from behind the tail ender, and of course it is Nelson Piquet and Emanuele Pirro. So Piquet in third position has lapped Pirro, who is in 17th position, and the leader Ayrton Senna has lapped everybody up to Roberto Moreno at half distance, and Moreno is in 8th position, and he's actually lapping third fastest at the moment, and Senna has just gone round a second faster than Nigel Mansell. The Brazilian, I think, senses victory. His coolness and calmness in the cockpit is legendary. He has an ice-cold brain, and he thinks out the tactics and then implements them faultlessly, as he is doing now.
Yes, well, this really close and charging race has now spread out a little bit at the front. It's rather symmetrical, in fact, because Senna leads Mansell by 6 seconds, Mansell leads Piquet by 6 seconds, who leads Berger by 6 seconds. So we've got this sort of around about 6-second gap between each of the first 4 cars, and then Prost is a little bit closer. He's just a couple of seconds behind Berger, but not really looking like threatening or even attacking him. I think he's a man in a state of depression, and I think Berger would have to sort of park it on the side of the road and wave him through before Prost is going to actually attack. That's a lazy, messy weekend for him, and he's certainly done nothing this weekend that will make the Tyrrell team mourn his departure.
Ayrton Senna that you're looking at has yet to win an Australian Grand Prix. It's one of the few he hasn't won. He started 4 times in pole position out of 6 races, and as you see, he is very much the fastest man on the circuit, and now leads Nigel Mansell's Ferrari by 7.6 seconds. Indeed, the times between Mansell and Piquet are virtually identical, and they're both lapping a bit slower than Ayrton Senna, but it's still Senna, Mansell, Piquet 3rd, Berger 4th. We haven't seen much of Gerhard Berger, but he's there, ahead of Alain Prost in 6th position, as Capelli exits the pits.
Yes, oh, and that was a bit tight, and that won't please Martini, I don't think, who he let straight out in front of him, but the pit road is part of the racetrack, and Capelli is entitled to be racing as he exit the pits, but he'll probably having to be feeling his car for whatever they did when he was in the pits, and that will make him slower, and that will aggravate his 2 pursuers. Now, Senna really seems to be taking control of this race, that he certainly struggled to do up to half distance, with Mansell attacking him from behind, catching him quite easily every time he got held up or dropped back a bit. But now I think I get the feeling that the McLaren was not working that well on full tanks, but the combination of Senna in a McLaren with less than half a tank full of fuel is beginning to look as it did on Friday and Saturday here, and that was in a class of its own, this driver-car combination, and that says a lot for Senna, because Berger does not make the McLaren look so anything like as sensationally good compared to the others. I think Senna now is really starting to stamp his authority in this race, and it looks to me as if Mansell's beginning to run out of any idea to respond. The lightening of the fuel, though, it seems to have suited the McLaren better than the Ferrari.
On the other hand, Alain Prost, who is 5th, is now catching 4th place man Gerhard Berger. There's Nigel Mansell ahead. And look at the Benetton behind Mansell. My goodness! Nelson Piquet right up with Nigel Mansell, and the gap was 7 seconds, so something very dramatic indeed has happened. All of a sudden, Nelson Piquet is there. Maybe there was a spin by Nigel Mansell.
Yes, I'm grabbing the microphone off Murray just to say I think he must have had a spin, and there it is. So we didn't see it, but the cameras did, and he was off the circuit when it was a straight on clearly by Mansell. He under braking, and maybe some of Mansell's dropping back. Brake trouble has been what everybody has feared here. All the teams have been struggling to for the brakes to keep up with the tremendous power and acceleration and speed of these cars. Every year they go a bit quicker down the straights and power away a bit more, so the brakes have more to stop, and it becomes very marginal. So Mansell, a little exit under braking, but he still keeps 3rd place, and we see it from Mansell's car now. And now you watch him spin turn it, because it's a straight on. Now boot it, spin it round, that's it, that was a spin turn, and away he goes. There are the big back marks he left, and so he lost only about 5 seconds, because Piquet was 7 behind, and he just got away before. So that, of course, now looks to me that without trouble that has handed the race to Ayrton Senna. The one potential challenger he had on the road, Nigel Mansell, is now going to be far more busy dealing with Nelson Piquet's attentions from behind, and it looks as if the new world champion is doing just what he intended to confirm the statement, I am the best in the business, and I'm coming to Australia to relax and enjoy myself. And he's done it yesterday, he did it on Friday, and now he's doing it. But Piquet and Mansell, a battle seems to be starting.
Indeed it does. No battle now between Senna and Mansell. It's 17.6 seconds, and Senna can now concentrate for the rest of this 81 lap race. He's on lap 45, on preserving his tyres, looking after the car, not overstretching himself. He's superlatively fit and very determined, and that's very unlikely to happen. But Nigel Mansell struggling to retain that second position. He had hoped, of course, to win again here in Australia, having only won once this year in Portugal. But Nelson Piquet is underlining his comeback in 1990, a win in Japan and a second place in Canada. He's fourth in the championship, and now he's almost second in the race because Nigel Mansell missed something there, missed a gear maybe, but whatever. Nelson Piquet actually had to brake not to run into the back of the Ferrari, and this, I think, is going to be the change. Nelson Piquet will go through.
I think Mansell is probably in brake trouble. And then, of course, he's got the pickup problem out of that corner where Piquet got very close. And he's going to have to be braking early. Well, he's fighting to keep his place, but I think he's in brake trouble. He's all messy. And he looks like an angry man in the car. He looks very frustrated, does Mansell. But the fact that he's off was a braking error. Well, what a disappointment for Nigel Mansell. Whatever it is, he's clearly in trouble. And he was seesawing away at the steering wheel in frustration then. And Mansell has slowed right down, so he's got something pretty serious.
Yes, what a pity for Nigel Mansell, but what good news. Now, here's the replay, and you see Nigel Mansell running wide. Nelson Piquet goes through on superior braking. Mansell has to drop back. That's the S's, and you can see now the gap that is extending with Nelson Piquet having moved up into second position, and Berger and Prost closing up on the Ferrari. So it's going to be a real race for third soon.
No, this is serious brake problems for Mansell. You saw that his left front locked there, and there's no doubt that Mansell is in what looks to me like almost terminal brake trouble unless he slows right down, and whether that's going to take him out of the points, I think he may well be headed for the pits, and he's waving to his pit, but he can talk to him about it on the radio. Now look at this. This is the brake problem. The left front was grabbing. It makes me think that the right front may not have been working, and the car is really all over the place. And worse still, with brake trouble like that, it behaves very unpredictably, and Prost is now attacking, and we'll hope that Mansell may confuse Berger, and maybe that Ferrari have radioed Mansell at least to stay out to help Prost until they're passed.
And of course, Ayrton Senna's pulling away all the time. 20 seconds now is the gap between Senna leading, Mansell second. But Gerhard Berger's got a major problem. He's got Nigel Mansell in his sights, so he's going for second position. But he can see Alain Prost big in his mirrors, and he knows that the Frenchman in the Ferrari has got the legs of him. He's closed up a lot on the McLaren. So it is Ferrari second, Mansell, McLaren third, Berger, Ferrari fourth, Alain Prost. Berger has a look at Nigel Mansell to go through to second position. Mansell closes the door, and that has allowed not just Berger to close up on Mansell, but Prost to get into a passing situation against Gerhard Berger. And now Ayrton Senna is on lap 48, second, third, fourth together.
Berger has a look now, but he has to anchor up a lot, and that messes him up. But Prost, who's ready to come by, has nowhere to go. And Mansell, not surprisingly, into the pits, but this will be... Yeah, tyres, wait, I don't think changing tyres is going to do it. I'm really certain that it's brakes, but of course you can't do anything about the brakes during the race. They are at something like 400 degrees centigrade. They're a little bit difficult to sort of work on.
So Nigel Mansell out after a 7.7 second stop, and that means to say that Berger behind Piquet in third position, Prost in fourth place. Nigel Mansell has rejoined in fifth position ahead of Thierry Boutsen, and Senna has lapped everybody up to Boutsen, who is in sixth position. So now you're looking at Gerhard Berger's McLaren Honda and the Ferrari of Alain Prost, who, as you can see, are in third and fourth places, and you can see how close the gap is between them. Now Prost is lapping, or did lap on the previous lap, by 1/10 of a second slower only. The McLaren preparation and the Honda preparation seems as ever to have been faultless. Senna doesn't seem to have had a moment's mechanical problems. He had his engine cut out in the half-hour final practice 4 hours before the race began this morning. And both he and Berger had trouble with the big brake ducts on the front of the McLaren, as a result of which they were strengthened, and the results seem to have caused an absolutely faultless race for both of them. McLaren's first and third then. The Benetton of Piquet in second place. Alain Prost in the Ferrari, followed by his teammate Nigel Mansell, fourth and fifth. Not a good race for Ferrari at the moment. And Derek Warwick, I'm sad to say, has stopped.
Well, I must say, the Ferrari pit stop was very impressive indeed. I didn't see how long Mansell was actually stopped, but he only lost about 15 seconds on the road, and Berger is off! And a mistake from Gerhard Berger. He was lucky he had the space then, but that was the mistake that Prost has waited over half the race for. And Alain Prost now moves up into third place, and I think he'll drive away from Gerhard Berger. Berger was struggling, and Berger, quite honestly, that was a self-inflicted error. He's got the Japanese Grand Prix should be on his mind, and maybe Berger is sent. Yes, you see, put it on the curb, and that is fatal. Absolutely guarantees trying to turn into a corner from those big, high, slippery curbs on your outside wheels, the ones that are going to take the load. You really got no chance.
So Alain Prost moves up into third position. And mark this, he is 10 seconds behind Nelson Piquet in second place, who is 19 seconds behind Senna.
Well, I was going on about brake trouble for Mansell, but a new set of tyres seems to have done him no harm at all. He is currently the quickest car on the circuit. And he is, at the moment, 8 seconds behind Gerhard Berger. And lapping quickly, so...
Piquet, there is his Senna crossing the line at the end of the 50th lap, commencing the 51st. But Alain Prost really, I think, is the man that really we're going to have to keep an eye on, because with those 10 seconds he's behind Nelson Piquet. It's entirely possible he's going to take time out of Piquet. But having said that, Ayrton Senna has yet again set a new lap record of a 1 minute 19.302. The lead he has on Piquet now up to 23 seconds.
And Piquet, a very slow lap that last one, and Prost now only 7 seconds behind him, so perhaps Piquet is in tyre trouble. So still plenty to fight for in this Australian Grand Prix. Senna leads from Piquet, Prost, Berger.
Senna leads Piquet now by 23 seconds, but Piquet leads Prost by 7.4 seconds. Prost is 4 seconds now ahead of Gerhard Berger, and Berger is 6 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell, who is lapping faster than the Austrian. Thierry Boutsen is in 6th position, and in 7th place behind Thierry Boutsen is his teammate Riccardo Patrese. 8th is Moreno, 9th is Alesi, 10th is Herbert, 11th is Nakajima, and 12th is Pierluigi Martini. There's Prost. Well, are we going to see Prost catching Nelson Piquet and moving up into second position? There's still a long way to go in this race. There's another 30 laps. And Piquet is dropping back all the time. Senna is absolutely searing round this Adelaide circuit, totally in control. And his driving is smooth fluidity. It's a joy to watch. Philippe Alliot in front of Alain Prost. And it's very important to Prost that he can get cleanly past his countryman. Is Alliot going to give way and let him through? Senna leading, coming up to the end of the 52nd lap. And the interest now is this gap between Piquet and Prost. Is it going to be lower than 7.4 seconds? Well, there's the race leader, commandingly into the second half of the race. Well in control, on his way to his 27th Grand Prix victory, and yet another 9 points to add to the 395 that he already has, to take him up into the 400 points area. Before he goes away for a long holiday to Brazil, Senna likes to get away in the winter and have a real break. Just watch the way he handles it. Now, Piquet through, and I'm waiting for Alain Prost to go through, and Piquet has actually responded with a fast lap and pulled away from Alain Prost. He's extended the gap to 8.5 seconds by nearly a second, and it's fairly static at the moment. We've got 8 retirements. Aguri Suzuki, David Brabham as Senna laps Griard, who are accused of retiring but has appeared again. So David Brabham's the second retirement. Andrea De Cesaris is out, Eric Bernard is out, Morbidelli, Gutermin, Derek Warwick and Ivan Capelli.
Yes, and Mansell, although I thought he was in brake trouble, seems to have got a new lease of life with those tyres. Is the only he and Senna really are lapping in the 19s. Piquet popped one in there, which has shown that he's responded to the threat from Prost, reopened the gap a little bit. But Mansell is now only 3 seconds behind Gerhard Berger, and very much Berger within his sights. There is Roberto Moreno, who's in 8th place at the moment, and still very much learning what it's like to be in the leading group in the Grand Prix, but I'm quite sure he'll learn fast. And I do hope that Benetton will give him the drive next year, because quite apart from anything else, I can't see that there's any driver around who is available who would do a better job. Certainly I heard rumours that they were muttering about Thierry Boutsen, but they must be completely mad to think that Boutsen's going to be anything like as good as Moreno.
Quite apart from the fact it would mean yet another broken contract in Grand Prix racing, because Boutsen has signed already for Ligier next year. I've heard talk that the Benetton team sponsors might not want 2 Brazilians in the team. I can only say to that 2 Brazilians of the magnitude of Nelson Piquet and Roberto Moreno, a very established triple world champion and a really super driver like Roberto Moreno would do credit to any team. Now, Senna leads Piquet by 27 seconds and is on his 55th lap, with Nigel Mansell slicing through the field and Alain Prost going inside the Ligier. And Senna's way out on his own now. It looks like about a 30-second lead to me.
Yes, just going back to the number 2 Benetton seat situation, it is something that never ceases to amaze me in this business, and it's not just the Benetton team who can find this, and it's the lack of understanding by team managers, and very senior ones, of anything to do about how good drivers are, because for anybody who knows anything about drivers to even contemplate that Boutsen's anything like in the same class as Moreno has got to be just not understand motor racing at all, as far as I'm concerned. Because there's no question that Boutsen is a slow journeyman and Moreno is a talented driver.
And Nelson Piquet is 27 seconds behind Senna, but he's keeping clear of Alain Prost. And you see the Ferrari there coming up to the sole AGS in this race. It is that of Gabriele Tarquini, the Italian, driving for the French team. He is in 17th place. And here's a rundown on the places on lap 56. In the lead, of course, is Ayrton Senna. In second place is Piquet. Third is Prost. Fourth is Gerhard Berger. Fifth is Nigel Mansell. Sixth is Boutsen. Seventh is Patrese. Eighth is Roberto Moreno, who has actually been lapped. Jean Alesi is in 9th position. Johnny Herbert is 10th. Nakajima is in 11th place. Martini is 12th. Then behind Martini in 13th place, Nicola Larini, who has been lapped twice, as has his teammate Philippe Alliot, who is 14th. 15th is Emanuele Pirro. 16th is Stefano Modena, who has been lapped 3 3 times, as has Gabriele Tarquini, who you just saw Prost passing. Tarquini in 17th place. Just for the record, Griard is still running, 5 laps adrift in 18th place, but Capelli, who was 19th, is out, and the fastest lap thus far was on lap 50 by Ayrton Senna, 1 minute 19.302 seconds, which is a full second inside the previous lap record held by his now teammate Gerhard Berger, who was driving for Ferrari at the time. But things are hopping up, because you see there, now there is the Ligier headed by Tarquini. That is Gerhard Berger in the red and white car, and there's got to be some passing now, because Gerhard Berger has got Nigel Mansell storming on the new tyres behind him. Nigel Mansell 5th and going for 4th, and this is the battle. Gerhard Berger from Austria in the McLaren. He, of course, has not come in for tyres, so Nigel Mansell's got the advantage. And he's now, metaphorically, just picking his moment to get past. With Senna on lap 57, and off goes the Tyrrell. And out goes Satoru Nakajima. That makes the retirements up to 9. Perfectly all right, he's just slid off on the grass, dinged the front of the very unique nosed Tyrrell with its anhedral wings, and Mansell really is fighting now.
Yes, and ahead of him, Piquet has demonstrated, I think, to Alain Prost that whatever Prost does, he can cover it, because tremendous shot there. You can see some of the rubber, the great big chunks of rubber, which are called the marbles. Good close up there, and if you get onto those, they literally roll under the tires, and there goes Nakajima straight on, but just about stops before he gets to the aggravation. Meanwhile, and Mansell is through. Mansell at the end of the straight has dived inside Gerhard Berger, not unexpectedly. He's on fresher tyres than Berger's been lapping a lot quicker than him, positioned himself well for the toe. So Mansell moves up into 4th place. However, a long way behind Alain Prost, and Alain Prost is lapping quicker than he's done at any other time in the race, but Piquet is still maintaining the gap. Here we see again, replay now. Mansell ducking out as they come into the braking area, and with a little bit more grip, fresher tyres, it enabled him to jump Berger very skillfully on the turn into the corner. He just came off the brakes earlier, wasn't really ahead of him, and jumped inside him at the corner. Very good piece of driving by Mansell.
Showing his claws and growling hard, moving up into 4th position. The gap between himself and Alain Prost is 11 seconds, and on the previous lap, Prost was faster, and considerably so, than Senna and Piquet. So we're getting the makings of a very interesting end to the Australian Grand Prix. Not an end that will affect the position of Ayrton Senna, because he hasn't got a cushion. He's got a lounge suite between himself and Nelson Piquet, who is in 2nd position, with Alain Prost in 3rd place, Nigel Mansell 4th, Gerhard Berger 5th, and Thierry Boutsen in 6th position. But the Ferraris have been reliable, and that has made this race. The McLarens have been reliable and faster as far as Ayrton Senna is concerned. And now let's see what the situation is as Nigel Mansell goes past. Well, he's matched the lap time of Alain Prost, but he's no faster. There's that distinctive silhouette of the Ferrari. It's been a very disappointing move for Nigel Mansell when he left the Williams team and went to Ferrari. He's had 3 wins, but he must have expected a lot more than that.
Yes, and amongst the front, peaceful, this sort of stuff. But Berger is still doing what he can to stay with Mansell. Assistance from the back markers has helped, so Mansell isn't yet away from Berger, and he's got Prost some 7 or 8 seconds ahead. And I'm quite sure that he'd like to finish the season, he'd very much like to finish the season in front of teammate Alain Prost. He's frustrated and he's looking for any straws to clutch at, because he's tried hard. He's had a very short straw as far as mechanical reliability is concerned with his Ferrari. And but as he said yesterday, I saw him being interviewed, he said, I'd like to get rid of all my bad luck this year because I need the good luck for next year. And I would agree with that.
Yeah, and Senna's coming up to lap Patrese, and here is the replay of Nigel Mansell giving the highway code instructions to Olivier Grilliard as he goes past him for the second time. Now, I'm laughing, but it is actually no laughing matter. Mansell's getting on for 300 Ks when he was doing that, and I'm sure there will be a very brisk interview between the Englishman and the Frenchman when this race is finished, and Nigel will probably be supported by several other drivers as well. Now, Ayrton Senna is the only man who looks like achieving his objective in this race out of the 4 top men. I said at the beginning of the race that Ayrton Senna would be determined to win this race to erase any criticism that there had been of him after the collision at the start of the Japanese Grand Prix. That Alain Prost would be equally determined to win, and that is Senna closing up on Patrese, who is in 7th place.
And that was a rare mistake by Senna. He went a little bit wider and lost rather a lot of ground to the Williams, but he can afford the luxury of a very minor error. It wasn't anything serious. And with reference, of course, to the incident in Japan, strangely enough, there's been a lot of uninformed criticism of Ayrton Senna here by people who really ought to understand motor racing better. People who should know have been saying, well, it was Senna's fault, the accident, and Prost was an innocent victim, and that, of course, is complete rubbish. Prost made the bed on which he ended up lying all his own work. He opened the door there, invited Senna in, did not commit himself to going to the right-hand side of the track as he should have done, and a new lap record for Nigel Mansell. So he's getting the bit back between his teeth on his fresh tyres, but he's actually, with the traffic, he's lost a little bit of ground to Alain Prost. He's now 4 seconds further behind him than he was a few laps ago, so he's not out of sight. He can still catch him, but he's going to have to work very hard. And Berger is still lurking not so far away. They're well over a second under the old lap record.
The fastest lap, actually, is that of Ayrton Senna. It's still the lap 51:19.3. And Senna walking in! What has happened? That is Senna! This is incredible! Ayrton Senna, there's his car! Ayrton Senna is not going to win the Australian Grand Prix. Zap! Straight off the circuit, over the clag and into the tyres.
Well, I beg his pardon, that at the previous corner or two, that wasn't a mistake by Senna, that was a problem that he had. And, so Senna out of the race.
And of course, Nelson Piquet leading, and there he is. Nelson Piquet, the 3 times world champion from Brazil, who won in Japan, now leads the Australian Grand Prix, and out goes Gabriele Tarquini. They're disappearing like ice cubes in the desert now. The mice are getting at the machinery, and the machinery that the mice are most getting at is the brakes, because that may have been Senna's problem. But never mind what the problems were in this sensational development. Ayrton Senna, that everybody, including me, I must admit, confidently expected to win, is not going to do so. Nelson Piquet is on his 63rd lap, leading Alain Prost by 10 seconds, who is 7 seconds ahead of Mansell, who is 5 seconds ahead of 4th place man Gerhard Berger. Thierry Boutsen is 5th, 21 seconds behind Berger, and Patrese is in 6th position. We have got a race on our hands, because Prost and Mansell could either of them win.
Well, Piquet's looked in good shape to cover any move made by Prost behind, and I don't think we need feel too sorry for Ayrton Senna, because I think he will quite clearly, there was some sort of problem with the car there. The car just went straight on. It didn't make any attempt to turn the corner, but I don't think he looks as if he was wounded in any way, and I think he'll feel very happy the way he dominated this meeting up to that point. A racing driver can't get disappointed when he's done everything in his power, put not a foot wrong, got the pole, led the race comfortably, controlled it, and then something goes wrong.
Well, nothing's going wrong for Nelson Piquet so far. I say so far because I say again, as I've said several times already this afternoon, that this is going to be, and always was going to be, a race of attrition. Only 8 cars finished last year in the wet, and 8 cars is about par for the course. At the present moment, there are 16 running effectively with all the retirements that we've had, and you're watching now Alain Prost in second position, and Prost, of course, will not only know that his rival, his hated rival, let's make no bones about it, Ayrton Senna, is out of the race, because there will have been a joyous message from Cesare Fiorio, who is the Ferrari team manager, through the radio to number 1 Alain Prost, telling him that Senna is out. He'll not only know that, but he will know that he is lapping faster than Nelson Piquet, who is leading this race, 7.1 seconds ahead of Alain Prost. Prost may also know that Nigel Mansell is lapping faster than he is. The gap between first and third is closing up, and Prost is the Ferrari meat in the Benetton sandwich.
Yes, and we're certainly all praying that the concertina will close up with, say, 10 laps to go, and we can get a 3-car fight for the lead, and that would be marvellous. That's Stefano Modena. And remember how quick that Brabham is. Once it gets out onto the straight, they're running very little wing compared with a lot of other cars. So he can't actually get past, but he can get on the inside line and take him under braking.
Yes, and to be totally objective about Senna's retirement, the retirements that he's had in the Grand Prix this year have been something to do with the car and not with him. In the San Marino Grand Prix, he had a wheel collapse. In Mexico, he had a puncture. In Spain, the radiator was punctured. Now, here's a replay of Senna going off. He approaches the corner, goes left, but then goes straight on over the curve and the gravel into the tyres.
And it looked like a steering problem, or maybe a suspension collapse, because he was turning the wheels and the car was not responding at all. And maybe he had a hint of that problem at the hairpin, the lap before at the Foster's hairpin, when he appeared to make error behind the Williams that I referred to. And then 3/4 of a lap later, it was clear that that probably wasn't a mistake, and that was very much a mechanical failure somewhere in the systems of the car. But as I say, racing drivers accept that, especially when they've just won the World Championship, particularly when you've done everything right up to that moment, dominated the entire meeting, and Senna will walk away a happy man.
Yeah, and there are going to be people, obviously, who disagree with my point about Senna and his retirements when it comes to Japan. But of the 3 of the 4 were certainly car problems, and the 4th and the 5th too, I suspect. So Nelson Piquet leads Alain Prost by 8 seconds and is fighting back. Piquet has got the message. He's got a radio too. And the message, appropriately enough, will have come from Gordon Message, who is the Benetton team manager. And the message will be, put your foot down, Nelson, because the Frenchman was catching. It's 8.5 seconds now. Mansell is only 4.7 seconds behind Prost. Piquet leads, Prost second, Mansell third. Gerhard Berger is in 4th position. 5th is Boutsen, 6th is Patrese, and in 7th place behind Patrese is Roberto Moreno in the 2nd Benetton. We may yet see the 2 Benettons in the top 6 here as they were in Japan.
And Piquet want to catch Griard on the straight. I don't think he's going to. He will not want to have to follow Griard through the twisties. Oh, big relief for Nelson Piquet. He's just managed to nip through, because, of course, you can't control whereabouts on the lap you're going to catch a back marker. And if you're going to catch Griard, that was the perfect place. course, he didn't hold him up through the corners, pulled him in on the straight and just nipped through before the twisties.
On lap 67 out of 81. Don't leave the room. There's a lot to come yet.
And now, of course, Piquet knows that he may well get a little bit of help from Griard because he got through him without losing anything. And yet Prost and Mansell have still got to fight their way around Griard, and we know what Mansell thinks about that already this afternoon in 2 encounters.
Mansell is now under 3 seconds behind Alain Prost, and he's lapping significantly faster than Nelson Piquet. Piquet's just gone round in 1:21.2. Mansell's just gone round in 1:19.0. So he's taken 2 seconds out of Piquet's lead, and of course much the same out of Alain Prost's second position. Mansell is the man to watch at the moment in 3rd place. This is Piquet, the leader.
Yes, having just done the new lap record at 19.060, his lap he's just completed was 19.069, just 9 thousandths of a second slower. So Mansell is absolutely fired up, right on the limit, and lapping consistently very fast when he has no traffic. Now, Nelson Piquet, a wealth of experience, he's got lots of motivation, he's in the mood to win, and he is going to make himself, I'm sure, very tough to beat. Prost, I think, is a man of little resolve at the moment, and if anybody's going to give Piquet a real challenge, if Mansell can catch and pass Prost, and Mansell is right in there, and Moreno is amongst the traffic being lapped.
Yeah, well, let's watch this, because as you can see, Nigel Mansell is within striking distance, not literally, I trust, of his teammate Alain Prost in second position, who is now dropping back. You see, Mansell is going faster. Prost, it's not that Prost is stationary in terms of his comparative lap speeds. Nigel Mansell is going quicker all the time. And while you watch this, just bear in mind that Nelson Piquet is on $100,000 a point for a win, and that is $900,000 if he wins, as he did in Japan. Nice going.
Yes, and Mansell has got a real problem behind the traffic here.
Maybe, just maybe, Roberto Moreno knows from the radio exactly what the situation is, in which case he would not have been making it easy for the Ferrari to get past. Mansell has done so. And of course he has lapped Roberto Moreno, who is in 7th position. It's still Piquet leading. He's now on his 70th lap, ahead of Prost, Mansell, Berger, Boutsen, Patrese. Moreno has been lapped in 7th position, and here comes Nigel over the line. He's now 3.9 seconds behind Prost.
And a disastrous lap there for Nigel Mansell. He lost 4.5 seconds on the speed that he had previously been doing, and that has really hurt his chase of Nelson Piquet. Prost also lost a bit of time. I can see that Mansell we see from the helicopter here the gap between the 2 Ferraris. Mansell will certainly be able to catch Prost quite quickly. He'll then have to fight a way past, and meanwhile Piquet is maintaining a very healthy cushion. He'll be forever thankful that he got past Griard so cleanly at such a critical time in the race.
Yeah, and he's actually lapping fastest of all at the moment. He's the only one who's lapping in under 1:20. But that, of course, was as much as anything else because Nigel Mansell was so badly held up. There is the Englishman. We're on lap 70 in this absolutely riveting Australian Grand Prix. Perfect weather, perfect organisation, perfect administration, a super place, and everybody here in Adelaide is getting their just rewards. And Piquet then on his 71st lap. Here is Alain Prost in second place, and you can see how close Mansell is.
And a fine fighting response from Nelson Piquet, because Piquet has just put up his fastest lap of the race. And so he's working hard to maintain this 12-second gap, and a new lap record from Nigel Mansell. So no question of tyre problem this late in the race. The 3 leaders. Prost has done his fastest lap of the race, so has Mansell, and his, of course, is yet another new lap record. However, Piquet is playing it very cool. He seems to be equal to anything these two Ferrari drivers can throw at him in terms of quicker laps. The gap is still 12 seconds, and Piquet has managed through just recently to respond to anything that comes at him from behind and keep a good, healthy gap up.
He's driving a super race, in fact. And it's lovely to see this man back at the top after a lot of criticism from a lot of people about his lack of motivation, which frankly was caused by the fact that the Lotus car that he had last year and the year before was really not in the top rank. And Nelson Piquet is a driver who needs the motivation of a really good car, which he's got now. And this will be enormous encouragement for John Barnard and his design team in England as Prost goes through to complete his 71st lap, and Mansell now is 2.2 seconds behind him.
And Mansell now pulverising the lap record. He's reduced it by another 2 or 3 tenths of a second. He's now, nobody else has got anywhere near to 119, about 119 and a half, the quickest of anyone else, 118.45 to Nigel Mansell, and still he isn't right on Prost's tail. So this leading three, although they're not nose to tail, they are fighting each other very hard, and the battle is all about, they know where each other is, they are responding to each other's thrusts.
And there are, of course, no team orders or deference required in the Ferrari team. The World Championship has been lost to Alain Prost. He's on his own now. He's not going to be supported by Nigel Mansell. He's going to be attacked every inch of the way, and you can see that it's happening. Mansell is visibly getting closer. Prost is on worn tyres. Mansell is on considerably less worn tyres because he's come in and changed them with that 7.7 second stop, and the benefit is showing. It is now the end of lap 72. There were 10 laps to go at the end of that. Now here it is. Mansell will be going through to second place before very much longer. Alain Prost will be fighting for his pride, his reputation, and the extra points.
And Mansell really flying. 18.4 again. Just 300ths slower than his previous lap, which was a new lap record. But it's the old question, will Prost be helpful, a nice teammate? Because if he doesn't want to help Mansell through, Mansell could take several laps to get past him. Remember, at this range, his wings don't work well. He hasn't got the grip that he's been enjoying. But he's on a tremendous high at the moment, and the important part is when they get out onto the main straight. And it's this corner, onto the straight. Mansell more grip through with fresher tyres. He's going to get him. He's in perfect place. If he can get more grip on the in the braking area, I'm sure he's going to have a go. Mansell ducks out. Mansell is through. No fight from Prost, which was a proper and gentlemanly thing to do, because Mansell still has, well, maybe if there's no traffic, he could possibly just about catch Piquet. But then he'd have to find a way past. But I suspect that Piquet will be protected by traffic, and that's fair enough, because he's had to pass it already and find a way around. But Piquet's really flying as well. He's giving it everything. He understands the threat, but he has got an 11-second cushion to Mansell, which in under 10 laps, really, particularly with traffic, there's nothing I think that Mansell can do. Here, this was a classic manoeuvre. Prost did not fight Mansell, and you don't fight the inevitable. That was sensible driving by Prost. Let Nigel get up there and have a go. And that he'll do, but I don't think he can catch Nelson Piquet. Piquet, far too experienced. He's the motivation finally seems to be really back there, and with Piquet's head finally back in working order and his experience and skill, I'm sure he's not going to throw this one away or really give Mansell any real, not give Mansell any real chance.
I remember the Japanese Grand Prix last year. Nannini had settled for a certain second place, and incidentally, I'm glad to say that Alessandro Nannini, like Martin Donnelly, is making progress, and I'm sure that they will both be watching this race. I know Martin is, and But Alessandro Nannini last year in Japan had decided to settle for second place when Senna was well ahead of him, and he said he could have gone a lot faster and won the race had he known the problem that Senna had. But now Nelson Piquet, as James has said, is far too seasoned a veteran to make a mistake like that, and I can imagine a constant dialogue going on between the race engineer of Nelson Piquet in the Benetton team. And I was saying that this is a wonderful encouragement for John Barnard and his design team, who, having done Ferrari and done McLaren, are now, they hope, going to do the same for Benetton.
Well, if Mansell can stick in a couple of laps down by his lap record, around about 81, 18 and a half. Piquet's got a back marker. That would have taken a bit of time off him. And that was Pierluigi Martini, but he's safely through. Which means, and you see Mansell down at the end of the straight there. Mansell, of course, that's a cushion for Piquet to have Martini between them. There's a good chance that Mansell won't be able to just sweep past him without any delay. Probably the more likely thing that could change this result amongst the leaders is a late mechanical failure. Remember, this is a hard circuit on cars, and it's very hot, and they can break down late in the race. And yet another new lap record for Nigel Mansell, and he's pulled in nearly 2 seconds on that lap, taken 2 seconds out of Piquet's lead. 8.5 seconds it now is.
So Mansell really going for it. Now, I dare say last year, if anybody had said next year Nelson Piquet will win 2 Grand Prix, the reply might have been, and pigs might fly, in which case they would have been very, very wrong indeed. Look at this, Piquet on his way to his 2nd Grand Prix victory in succession, in a fine car, fine driver at the wheel, 3 World Championships behind him, but so is Nigel Mansell, in sight. Watch this. Here's Nigel Mansell. What an absolutely stupefying drive the Englishman has had in this Australian Grand Prix. Now, 8.5 seconds was the gap between race leader Nelson Piquet and the man you're watching, Nigel Mansell, at the end of the 75th lap. This is the end of the 76th lap coming up, and I'm waiting for Nelson Piquet to go through. There is Mansell over the line. Piquet has already gone over, of course. 6.8 seconds. Mansell has taken 1.7 seconds out of Nelson Piquet's lead on that lap. And if he can keep it up, he can catch Piquet. But can he get past him? That's a different story altogether.
And this is a fabulous charging drive by Mansell. He's pumped full of adrenaline, there's no doubt. He's throwing the car around the circuit, over the curves. He was riding up the curves. Very well done. He's really on a high, there's no doubt about it. And he's driving quite beyond even himself in the lift that's get. And I saw some dust of somebody disappearing. That was a strange route to take.
Yeah, but look at this. Look at Mansell diving out from behind Griard, up behind the Benetton. He's within striking distance now. This is great stuff. Nigel Mansell can win the Australian Grand Prix.
And that was Piquet doing what I said he wouldn't. The pressure has got to him. Maybe he's out of practice, because Mansell now has a real chance to win. Now remember, the Benetton was the fastest car on the straights this morning in the warm-up, and that is a problem for Mansell, but Mansell's got a grip advantage. So, well done Nelson, because he's given us an even more exciting finish than we thought we were going to get.
4 laps to go. Nigel Mansell going for it. Piquet knows he's there. Piquet knows he's gone off. Piquet's got a problem. He will be worried, but settled in his cockpit. He's got Riccardo Patrese in front of him in the Williams, who is in 6th position. Now, will Patrese move over? He's in his 208th Grand Prix. Nobody knows more about Grand Prix racing than he does. And he's got Piquet leading, Mansell second. You can see how close they are, bearing down on the Williams Renault. And Piquet needs desperately to get past before the long corner at the racetrack hairpin.
Now that helps Mansell. Mansell's getting a toe behind the Williams, but he's not quite close enough. He won't be able to attack Piquet this time under braking at the end of the straight. But I think he'll be pleased that Piquet has nobody immediately in front of him. He'll want Piquet on his own, I think, to attack for the moment. He can't rely on a back marker to interfere. He'd rather have a clear run with the extra grip he's got. But he is faced with this big problem that the Benetton is quicker on the main straight.
Well, now, Piquet, don't forget, on more worn tyres than Nigel Mansell. We're on lap 79. There's this one, and lap 80, and lap 81, and that will be the end of the Australian Grand Prix. But who is going to see that checkered flag first? Well, it's not. And that's crossed. Running very, very wide indeed at Brewery Bend out of Stag Turn on his way down the long straight, approaching it, and Piquet's giving it everything it'll take now. The Benetton with the Ford V8 engine, the Ferrari with the V12 engine, and this is lap 79. Now, down the long straight. This is where the Benetton speed, and they've probably got less downforce on the car than the Ferrari has, with its greater power. This is the long, long drag down to the second gear racetrack hairpin. Now it's from here onwards that Nigel Mansell starts to close. Round Paddock Turn, down to Foster's hairpin, then the short straight up to the S's. Now watch Piquet.
And it looks to me as if the turbulence from Piquet's car and maybe the tremendous high of the charge that Mansell put on may have just taken a little bit of an edge off him. He may now really be feeling exhaustion, and he's into the buffeting area, and just when he needed an even greater surge of energy at the end of this race, unfortunately it looks to me as if he just about used up. He must be really drained from that chase and unable to draw on any further reserves. Piquet's responding well and smoothly. His fastest lap of the race, so Piquet is really fighting back despite the mistake. Piquet is showing real fight, and good for him.
1:18.5 Nelson Piquet, lap 79. We're on lap 80 out of 81. 1:18.89 was Nigel Mansell, so he was 3/10 slower than Piquet. This sensational Australian Grand Prix is going right down to the wire, right down to the checkered flag. Racetrack hairpin. Now this is Mansell's gaining area on his newer tyres. But if Nelson Piquet can get through the S's first, and I have little doubt that he will do so, he's then going to have the quick bit at the Jack Brabham straight to consolidate the small lead that he has over Nigel Mansell as they go into the last lap. And this is the last lap. Piquet through the S's. Now sweep left up to Wakefield Turn, the right-hander, 145 k's between, up to East Terrace Bend, the left-hander. 1 second separates Nelson Piquet on the last lap of the Australian Grand Prix and Nigel Mansell.
Yes, and two drivers really flying around right on the limit. A marvellous finish to what's been a very exciting race. Big, and a back marker in front. Now, can this help? And it's Modena, who we know is quick on the straight, but Mansell is not really close enough. But he's going to get a double toe, because those cars side by side give him an even bigger hole in the air, but I don't think he'll do it. And oh, he's having a go. Oh, well, it's no problem, but it means, and he was right, he had to have a go there. He was Piquet will be glad he didn't take him off, because they weren't far from contact, and Mansell was highly committed. But easy second place for Mansell, no problem at all. But here we see it again. Now Mansell takes the opportunity and only just stops enough to avoid Nelson. So Nelson Piquet wins.
Yes, Nelson Piquet wins his 22nd Grand Prix as Glenn Dix waves the checkered flag. And look at the overjoyed Benetton mechanics. Well, Nigel Mansell did his duty for England, Ferrari and himself. He really tried in the last place where he could have got by, but Nelson Piquet, with his experience, managed to hold him off, helped by Stefano Modena, unwittingly, of course. And so, the Australian Grand Prix of 1990, the last race of the championship year, with Alain Prost coming home, has been won brilliantly by Nelson Piquet in the Benetton Ford. From Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, Alain Prost in third position, and there are the victors, Piquet and Mansell. They can both be very, very proud of themselves and their driving here in Australia. And once again, the flags of Brazil are flying, but this time not for Ayrton Senna, but for Nelson Piquet. Gerhard Berger finishes in fourth place, the only McLaren to finish, let alone in the top six. And we wait now for the fifth and sixth men to come home. Thierry Boutsen and Riccardo Patrese in their Williams Renaults, which have proved again to be reliable, but again, sadly, not to be fast enough when it comes to it. But a magnificent win, not just for Piquet, but for Benetton as well, because Roberto Moreno finishes in seventh place in his second Grand Prix in a real Grand Prix car, having finished second in Japan. Here's the victor. Well, the oldest man in the race, the second highest point scorer of all time. It's all joy. Now here's the no, it wasn't. They're just coming in. An enormous applause. It must be a record crowd here today for the Australian Grand Prix. It's been a record crowd every other day of the meeting, and my goodness, have they had their money's worth. Victory in Australia for Nelson Piquet. Second, Nigel Mansell, 3 seconds behind the Benetton. Third, Alain Prost, 2 Ferraris in the top 3. Gerhard Berger fourth, Thierry Boutsen in fifth place, and Riccardo Patrese 6th. Well, of course, Ayrton Senna has won the 1990 World Championship. Nothing was going to affect that, whatever happened in Australia. But an unhappy finish for the Brazilian to his Grand Prix year. Enormous contention and controversy in Japan, and a very dramatic and violent retirement here in Australia.
Rod Sloan, I should say, and the people from Foca TV, and particularly Chris Davis, for all their hard work over the season. We hope to be with you again next year, bringing you the live action as everyone runs onto the track. There's the final positions in the World Championship. Prost finally finishing 7 points behind Senna. Senna wins the title with 78. We knew that before this weekend. Prost 71. Piquet third place, ahead of Berger 43 each. Well, there's the activity down below as the air bottles get turned off and the fans crowd onto the race circuit, some through that gap, some over the top. Oh, what scenes, John. These Australians certainly have enjoyed their Grand Prix, their fifth Grand Prix. Confirmation of the constructors' final points: McLaren Honda 121, Ferrari 110, Benetton Ford 71, Williams Renault 57, Tyrrell Ford 16, Larousse 11, Leighton House Judd 7, and Lotus Lamborghini with their 3 points. Very disappointing season for them, but McLaren Honda winning that title for the third year running. Well, a huge crowd below us now as everyone waits to get on the podium of the Foster's Australian Grand Prix. They're running down the track. Well, reflections, John. Didn't really expect an Nelson Piquet victory, did you?
No, we did. In fact, up to three-quarter distance, we were watching yet another perfect Ayrton Senna race. All of a sudden, Ayrton Senna's understeering off the track and into the tire wall, and there was no obvious explanation as to why he went off. I don't believe that he was into the corner too wide, but we have to wait and hear from Senna after the race. The car was dragged off into that tire wall. But Nelson Piquet really deserving of the victory. After Senna went out, he drove well, particularly in the race. Competitive, and you know, there's life in old racing drivers yet, and Nelson is one of the elder statesmen, if not the elder statesman. I think outside of Patrese, He's competed in more Grand Prix than anybody else currently racing.
Yes, 38 years old. Nigel Mansell, also in his late 30s, and so too Alan Prost. Well, I wonder what Prost will think after all this, all those words earlier in the weekend. Certainly was not a happy boy this weekend. The trophy there being handed to Nelson Piquet for the second time in 2 weeks. Pat on the back from Nigel Mansell. He holds the trophy aloft.
Of course, Nigel's effort was absolutely magnificent. That last lap attempt down into the hairpin at the end of the straight, of course, was...
Yes, handing over the trophy, John Bannon, the Premier of the South Australian government, put so much into this race, a race which brings so many people to the beautiful city of Adelaide. And now the customary champagne spray. And off it goes.
I think John Bannon got a bit of a dousing there.
Below them, Ferrari flags, Brazilian flags.
There was a very large Italian community down in Australia and in South Australia, so Ferrari and Benetton